send it to my kids.
I have to stick it somewhere.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Oh, yeah.
All the minutes.
Yeah, she had some corrections.
That's, it says on here as corrected.
I used a couple of pieces, like, I mean, my bad.
They'll be here later.
I'm Adelie Randall.
Shelby Vossas. Vossas, V-A-S-S.
Natalie, are you a student body officer? Like, what are you serving as? In what capacity?
I don't know. Gosh, now I'm in it. Well, okay, so I ran for president, and then I lost by 2 votes.
Wow.
And
That's a
then
close race.
she just put me in, I think as a senator.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, that was too close to not serve somehow.
I counted a couple times.
Yep.
So you have big plans for vacation?
Staying here and working.
No. It's still different. It'll be a break.
Yeah.
Before we started.
Yeah, and I'll upload it as soon as I get some.
Oh, berries. Yeah. I take over there. Oh, good. Sometimes those take 30 minutes to update.
Yeah.
What's that, Jay?
Another dollar.
You know, the Japanese. I hereby call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone and thank you for being here. Melina Keller will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Melina. Let's see. All of our board members are present with the exception of Mrs. Janie Gebhardt, who is excused. And we have an addendum to our agenda tonight. It has a human relations report, bid awards, and legislative update. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addenda. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the agenda with the addenda.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes authorizing the payment of claims, approving the supplemental financial information, approving the human resource activity, approving the ISU social work program affiliation agreement, and approving the ISU social work and administrative intern requests. I would entertain a motion to.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Good job.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And aye, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is Mrs. Fisher to conduct the recognitions.
Good evening, Chairman Mattson, trustees, Dr. Howell, Ms. Johnson, and student representatives. Tonight we're going to recognize several individuals who through their endeavors have supported and embodied our district's mission, vision, beliefs, and goals to think, learn, and be more together. Our district believes a safe, supportive, caring, and respectful environment is critical to student learning. The District Education Foundation, in partnership with McDonald's, supports the Learner of the Month Award to recognize students who show great character. And we have a few of those with us tonight. The Learner of the Month Cake Award recognizes one elementary learner and one secondary learner from our district from October through May. The Cake Award celebrates positive character, attitude, kindness, and encouragement toward others. In addition to being recognized here at the monthly board meetings, the recipients will also receive cupcakes delivered to their classes to be enjoyed with and among their peers. Nominations for the Cake Award are submitted by a teacher who has observed the nominee's behavior and are approved by the school's principal. So with that, will Melina Keller please join me up at the podium, as well as her teachers. Mrs. Jennifer Craythorne here tonight? Mrs. Craythorne? Oh, She must have had something come up. So, it's just you and me today. Okay? So in her nomination, so you are a fourth grader, right? A fourth grade learner at Chubbuck Elementary in Mrs. Craythorne's class. And I wanted just to read a little bit about what Mrs. Craythorne wrote about you in her nomination letter. Melina is an amazing student. She always does her best on whatever assignment she is given, checking over her work and correcting her mistakes before she hands it in. Melina also has beautiful, legible handwriting, which is a ray of sunshine for a teacher. Because of her ability to understand and follow directions, Melina not only does well on all of her assignments, but she is able to help others when they don't understand. Melina always has a smile on her face, is a friend to everyone around her, and is a true example of someone who shows kindness to anyone she comes in contact with. These amazing qualities are why I nominate Melina Keller as the Cake Student of the Month for elementary. So, you are going to get this. I'm going to shake your hand and give you this. You're also going to get, Benny the Bengal is going to join us on March 27th, right after spring break. He'll come to our class and we'll have cupcakes for your class. And then you're also going to get a gift certificate to McDonald's, who helps us sponsor this award. And then your library is going to receive a $50 donation where you can choose the books that you want for your library, and you will get to sign your name in those books and have them. So anybody who ever checks out those books will see your name signed in there. So that's pretty cool, right? So with that, will you please help me congratulate Melina? And then would you... Thank you for showing such a great example to your peers.
I know you guys.
Congratulations. Enjoy those cupcakes.
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Melina. Will Hunter Nelson and his teacher, Miss Jenny Park, please come forward and join me at the podium? Hello. So Hunter is a senior attending New Horizon, and I just found out that you actually just graduated. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So we owe you a congratulations on that as well. In her nomination, Mrs. Park wrote, Hunter is a student who is always willing to help others. He comes to school with a positive attitude and shows the utmost respect to everyone around him. I have witnessed Hunter go out of his way to help his fellow classmates on numerous occasions. He went above and beyond to help someone plan a PowerPoint for their senior project. Even today, Hunter was reading through a classmate's PowerPoint and giving them positive and helpful feedback in my classroom. He's also very knowledgeable about computers and is an amazing resource to have when any tech questions arise. I have no doubt that Hunter's kind and respectful personality and motivation to work hard will enable him to be very successful in future endeavors. So I also have a certificate for you. Congratulations. And that's for you to take. And then we also will be recognizing you if you wish. I understand that you're not in school, but we'll recognize you with your peers with cupcakes if you want to come back for a day in Mrs. Park's class. And you'll also both be receiving a gift card to McDonald's, and also your library will receive a $50 donation in your name to choose some books for your library to, and you'll sign those and you can choose the books that go in there. So if you would go through and shake everybody's hands and join me in congratulations.
Congratulations to us.
Thanks. Thanks for that information. Wonderful.
Okay, and now we will be presenting our Employee of the Month Award, which is we've named our PIES Award. The Employee of the Month PIES Award recognizes our employees who positively influence educational success. The award is for employees who go above and beyond in that effort. ISU Credit Union partners with us to help us sponsor this award. And with that, will Miss Callie Burrup please join me? Callie was nominated by Callie Baker from Highland. Callie is part of the administrative support staff at Highland High School. She's an integral member of the administrative support staff at Highland. Callie Baker nominated Ms. Burrup and was unable to join us due to a prior commitment at the Highland High School academic planning session, which is going on right now. In her nomination letter, Ms. Baker wrote, "Without our administrative support staff, our school district would crumble." That is very true. They are the backbones, the sounding boards, the pseudo-nurses, and much, much more. Today, I would like to nominate Callie Burrup for the Pies Award. Callie takes the momentous task of keeping administration, staff, and faculty on task and in the right place very seriously. Often behind the scenes, Callie quietly acts as a go-to person who can fix major issues at ease. She is kind in her approach and really listens to whomever is speaking to her. Also, she stays sane with the video doorbell system, which is new this year, and continues to be an excellent multitasker. Highland High School, and it's a busy place, so I know firsthand you have to multitask to handle that. Highland High School is a better place with Callie in it. So Callie, you also are going to receive a $50 gift card from the school district and a vacation voucher from our partners, ISU Credit Union, along with the certificate. There's a vacation voucher, and then Ms. Baker, who nominated you, will also be receiving a $20 gift card. So please join me in congratulating, and thank you so much for the gift.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have time for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And I have one request, Lisa Leishman. Is Lisa here? Oh, right there. You can sit there, but where you feel comfortable.
I'll sit down. I don't think I feel comfortable anywhere, but.
Okay, all right. One of the rules, 5 minutes.
Yep, I know.
Okay.
So I'm just going to read a statement that we have, if that's okay. Okay. All right, thank you for letting us address you this evening. I represent a group of concerned parents from Washington Elementary School. Our children are in the 3rd grade class at Washington, and for the past 4 years, these students have been in only one class. There were not enough students to create 2 classes. So each year, one class has been filled to capacity and extra students have been overloaded to other schools. There were 25 students in kindergarten and 1st grade, 28 students in 2nd grade and 3rd grade. With this particular group of students, this less than ideal situation has become steadily worse over the 4 years. It's an extremely busy, active class with several behavior issues and a wide variety of learning levels. The difficulties this presents for the teachers have been illustrated in letters that the teachers have written that I hope have been delivered to the board. While teaching style, philosophy, and experience vary widely among the teachers this class has had, each teacher has struggled to help the students achieve academically. As time progressed, we as parents began to be aware of the difficulties. Many of us volunteer in the classroom, and by 2nd grade we were concerned about their academic learning and the behavioral needs that were not being met. So why then are the concerns with this particular class being brought up at a board meeting? As we became aware of the way this was affecting our children, we began to discuss it with teachers and building administrators. We wondered what we could do as parents, if there was a way to get more adults in the classroom, would it be possible to split the class? In short, what could be done to improve the situation that we were faced with? In February of 2018, we met with Mrs. Nelson and Mrs. Stevens, our building administrators, hoping that we could get something done that year, but if not, something for the following year. At that time, we were told there were not enough students to obtain funding for another teacher to create a 2nd class. After talking to them, we met with Lori Craney to discuss the issue and see if the district could provide some funding, and we suggested several things that might be considered, including hiring a full-time paraprofessional to help in the classroom, a class split between 2 grades, a part-time teacher so the class could be split for teaching core subjects, or hiring a full-time teacher so we had 2 classes. Unfortunately, we were told that none of those options were feasible due to curriculum differences or lack of funding. We met again with Mrs. Stevens in April of 2018, hoping enrollment numbers would indicate we could get another class, but we found out that this would not be the case. We approached this 3rd grade year cautiously optimistic that things might be a little different with a new teacher and the kids being a year older, but found that many of the circumstances were still the same. It was still a large class with 28 students, and as with previous teachers, this teacher struggled to help kids meet their academic needs. Some of the students, let's see, as we would volunteer in the classroom, we noticed a large amount of time, about 25% for some lessons, was being spent on redirecting attention and dealing with discipline issues. Some of the students simply refused to participate. Bullying became an issue. Other parents, many of whom have not been able to spend a large amount of time in the classroom, were starting to talk about their students' academic needs not being met, as well as behavior issues that were occurring. Some parents chose to take their children out of our class and homeschool them or have them attend private or charter schools. In February of this year, we again met with Mrs. Stevens and Mrs. Craney. They listened to what we had to say, told us a little bit about the budget they'd been given to work with and the difficulty of trying to meet the needs of so many, but also that they would look into what could be done. We spent time discussing possible options for this year, and then it was also discussed that perhaps next year our class would be able to be split into 2 classes. Just this week, we were also able to meet with Dr. Howell and with Mrs. Craney again. We had a good discussion with them about the situation and some of the solutions that are being looked at for next year. The possibility that our class will be split is wonderful, but each decision that is made with the understanding that something somewhere else will be taken away because of limited funding. This then is the reason that we are here tonight. We are representing the small school in the district. For years now, we have been trying to find a solution to help our students and have been told repeatedly that there is a lack of available funding for it. What we would love to see at Washington is the same thing that we see at every elementary school in the district. That is, a full-time administrator in the building and at least 2 classes for every grade level. This would provide more stability and continuity, as well as opportunities for collaboration for the teachers and the ability to separate students where behavior is a concern. We really appreciate that our voices are being heard on the issues of this class and would love the same for all students and staff at Washington. Today, people in the district are voting on whether or not to continue to approve supplemental funding for the district. The money from this levy has been used to provide many things. We would love to see some of it directly benefit the students at Washington. The flyer sent out said that money is used in part to maintain learner success at all levels through quality instruction and provide highly qualified teachers and paraprofessionals. We would encourage the board to look for ways that the needs at our school can be met. Perhaps even an increase in the levy amount for next election could be considered. Many of us would gladly pay a few more dollars a month if we knew it was going to increase the quality of education for our children. Thank you.
Now it's time for public comment on the 2019-2020 budget. Does anybody want to come speak to that? I guess not. So let's move on. Next is reports. And we have 2 newbies here tonight. Adelaide, would you like to go first?
Of course.
Great.
All right, Highland High School is wrapping up Make-A-Wish Week. All proceeds from the events that we had last weekend this week go to Katie. She's the student that we are sponsoring through Make-A-Wish. She has cancer and she's 5 years old and she has the dream of going to Disneyland. We will give her a check with the money we raised during our assembly tomorrow. We would also like to congratulate all of our winter activities and athletics. We are proud of the way they all finished. Our cheerleaders and dance team are headed to the state championship this week, and our cheerleaders are returning state champions and working hard to bring home another title. Debate just had their state competition, and speech will be having their state competition next week. Thank you.
Thank you. The Central representative is Shelby Bosses.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for Century, we had our winter sports just finished. Our boys basketball team took 3rd, and they also won academic state champs, which was exciting. Century was just nominated as one of the top 11 most challenging schools in Idaho. We just hosted the state debate tournament last weekend, and we had one pair take 3rd place. Our dance team won academic state champions as well, and they'll be competing this Thursday. Our school has been prepping for the SATs and ISATs this week, as well as AP tests. Currently we have 620 AP tests ordered, so we're on track to do well with those. This Monday we had a fine arts assembly where we recognized foreign language, orchestra, band, all the things that don't usually get tons of recognition, and we had a standing ovation from the rest of the school. This week our spring sports have officially started, so we have all of our teams are at Minico this week. And we are doing a fundraiser right now. We've started a 3-on-3 basketball tournament at lunch, and all the proceeds are going to the animal shelter. Thank you.
Thank you. Since you're new and you don't understand, but you can stay with us all night if you like. Sure love to have you here, but no, you're excused if you'd like to go. Busy time. Thank you for your report. Let's see. Next up, Mrs. Fisher again. Mrs. Fisher.
Okay. For Media and Community Relations report for March 2019, since my last report on Tuesday, February 12th, we've continued to monitor headlines coming out of the legislature, which Dr. Howe is going to give you a more in-depth report later. But some of the things, headlines that we've been monitoring are the new funding formula and where that is situated, the extended concealed carry permits on school grounds, and election consolidation, which those have good news. Today's Idaho State Journal cover story read, "Phenomenal, Century ranked among nation's most exceptional high schools." So I loved seeing one of our high schools on the cover of the newspaper on Election Day with a flag proudly flying. And then also some headlines, the Cake Award recipients with Benny the Bengal, and continued coverage regarding today's supplemental levy renewal, which if you haven't voted yet, for anybody in the room above age 18 and older, please go vote before 8 tonight. And then we also had a couple of nice editorials in the last month. One of them from the Idaho State Journal editorial staff regarding the levy. Matt Hunter, CEO of the Pocatello Chamber, Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce, endorsed the supplemental levy, so they wrote a nice editorial about that. And then Tanner Saxton, the counselor at New Horizon High School, wrote an editorial about the Education as Power event where they invited Corinne McCandless, the author of The Wild Truth, to speak to alternative students, and that was a wonderful representative of our district as well, and with that editorial. As far as social media, we posted a total of 56 times on Facebook. We increased our page likes by 168 to we're almost just under 7,500. So slowly creeping up to 8,000, so that's a really good sign. We increased our page follows by to over 8,000. Total post engagement, which includes comments, likes, and shares, was 23,228, which is lower than the school closure month in January, but it's still significantly up from December. We had 17,944 page views, and our total reach was 39,630. Our video views totaled just nearly 3,000 views. We have 172 followers on Instagram, and we increased our Twitter audience to 226 followers, so those are slowly creeping up. The topics that seemed to garner the most engagement included the last of the school closure notices, hopefully it doesn't snow again, the PSNA pan sale last Friday, that was a really popular one, kindergarten registration, which we are really starting to heavily promote, which starts online this Friday. Academic planning sessions for incoming freshmen, which have started happening this week. And then posts, of course, about the supplemental levy have garnered quite a bit of attention as well. Our efforts to share information with the community about the supplemental levy have included more than 40 presentations throughout the community. That includes going into our schools, presenting information to our staffs, as well as PTAs and PTOs and community organizations. So I think I counted 42 total community presentations. The fact sheets that was distributed at those community meetings, as well as posted to the website and social media, many social media posts encouraging people to vote early, a flyer sent home to parents and guardians, infinite campus messaging and reminders, the editorials and media coverage. We had several news stories too, TV news stories, as well as the editorials, and then the day of election messaging that we did today. Other recent community outreach efforts, which I sort of already went over, kindergarten registration and academic planning for incoming freshmen. And then I think Trustee Mattson was with us, Chairman Mattson, but every month we invite members of our Key Community Network to come have lunch with us and learn really about what's going on currently in the district. And it's really a chance for us to showcase with some of our key stakeholders what we're doing in our schools. And in February, we invited Janelle Arvis and Dreama Carnaroli, our instructional technology coaches, to present some of the innovative technologies that we're using in our classrooms to teach math and to do some other really neat things. And after that presentation, our guests were able to explore the technology and use the coding and the robots. And it was just amazing to see. I'm going to post some video online. They were very, very engaged, just as our students are engaged when they have the opportunity to explore that technology. And it's just a pleasure each month to share with these community members all the accomplishments and instructional technologies and innovation that are happening in our classrooms. One other thing that I wanted to quickly bring to your attention that we'll go over more next month. I do have final numbers for festival, which I'll be sharing with you next month. We've also been approached by Idaho State University because there are only 4 weeks in December this year. Thanksgiving is very late. And it compresses ISU's timeline for their finals. So we have been asked to consider new dates for the festival, which right now we are exploring the dates presented to us the week before Thanksgiving. If we wait and do it the week after the other week that they presented to us, which was December 9th through 14th, we wouldn't be able to deliver trees until December 16th, which leaves 9 days. You know, people take off for the holidays, close their businesses. So I really feel like that would impact tree sponsorships. So we are exploring these right now. I will have a tentative calendar for you, and we'll make a final decision with the committee. And then if you have any feedback for me, I would certainly entertain it. So just wanted you to be aware sooner than later. All right.
Jackie, what do you think about that? You've been involved for 20 years.
Well,
Just off the cuff.
off the cuff, I don't like that.
Right.
You know, I think later would be better than earlier, and too close to Thanksgiving to lunch.
Right.
I think looking in the other direction rather than
Right.
earlier.
And there are definitely considerations that we're taking into account both ways. We have probably more challenging weather to deliver trees in the further into December that we get. Again, our sponsors enjoy bringing those trees into their businesses and being able to showcase them. So I feel like that would impact sales greatly. And we more than doubled our tree sales this year. We went from $9,000 to more than $18,000 in tree sales. So I'd like to see that number continue to grow.
What's the conflict?
It's finals. So they have to accommodate their final schedule as well as the week that we normally would have festival right after Thanksgiving. It would be a week later than it was even this year, just based on the way the calendar falls. And they still have to accommodate all of their student performances before their students leave for finals. And, you know, I've heard President Satterley speak many times about taking great measure so that ISU students aren't displaced for other activities. I've heard him mention that several times, and so I think this is one of those instances where their schedule is compressed, and so we need to be good partners and look at accommodating that.
So is this final schedule a new thing for this year only, or?
I asked George Casper when he called me if this had ever happened before, and that, you know, this will be the 10th anniversary of the festival. We've never had a 4-week December in that time frame. So this is a new challenge, and one I think we'll be able to address no matter what we choose with flying colors.
Hopefully we can just work it out.
Work it out.
Right. But I did pose the question, you know, can we say thank you, no thank you, we'll just stay where we are? And the answer to that was it's one of those. So it would either be December 9th through the 14th,
Which is kind of late.
or it's very late, and then or the 18th. We'll set up the 16th of November and deliver trees on the 25th. So the festival would really kick off, open to the public the 20th through the 23rd of November, just that week before December. Thanksgiving is the 28th of November. So we would deliver trees on the Monday before Thanksgiving, which is actually kind of, that's when people start thinking about setting up their trees. And so I'm starting to, I was leaning toward the later date too, and the more I start thinking about it, the more I lean toward earlier.
I can see the problem with the later date for trees.
Right. And then we also have the luxury of having a record day on Monday the 18th, which would allow us to, it's traditionally harder to get people up there on Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend to volunteer for setup. We've always been able to do it, but I feel like having a setup on that Saturday the 16th, 17th, and then record day would allow us some more flexibility with volunteers as well. So think about it, and if you have any questions, we haven't made a final decision by any means. I still have to take this to the Education Foundation Board and our planning committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Next on the agenda is our committee reports. Any reports to deliver?
No reports.
No reports? I was the wellness and insurance yesterday. Not a lot to report, but I think what is going to be reported, we can ask Carl about it today when he speaks to us.
Okay.
I'll do a better job than myself. So there you go.
And I think there's some reports in there from the curriculum committee and things.
Yeah, but that's in there. And I'm sorry if they were jumbled when some of you read them. I did fix them. Apparently those have been jumbled.
So
it's just certain documents that they've on Google Drive that are jumbled, things like that.
Okay.
But they're fixed now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hobbs, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Howell, and Ms. Johnson. We have a couple of policies that we have been working on, a couple of them to update, and there's one new policy in there. The first is the policy 3306, which is visitors at school who are on the sex offenders list. And there have been some changes made in that policy that are per recommendations from the Idaho School Boards Association, and also some changes made because of little bit of change in laws. And then the second one, and then there's a procedure that goes with that policy 3306 that updates how people who are on that sex offender registry can gain permission to come into schools, and the exceptions when they can come into schools. So it's not a huge dramatic change, but just a change in language for the most part there. Then on the next policy, 8313 is the student sex offenders, and we've never had a policy with regard to student sex offenders. That's not to say we haven't had, students who were sex offenders and on the registry. We've had practices that we've worked out with probation and law enforcement, but felt it necessary to put that into policy. So there is a policy that has been written with regard to notification and safety plans and those kinds of things to make sure that there was no risk to students. It separates student violators and their victims so that they're not in the same school and other such things. And then there's also a procedure that goes along with student sex offenders and how we make sure that all students are kept safe in the schools. And then finally is policy 7402 and 8302, which is suicide prevention. And this was changed because of changes in law. And also we have not had a procedure associated with that. Much of our procedures were embodied in the previous policy, and we've just separated that procedure out so that we have a very specific plan how we respond when there's some threats or some ideation of suicide that comes to our attention of students, how we respond in the case of a suicide completion, how we respond when a student comes back after having been hospitalized or been out of school for some period of time because of attempts or because of ideation. So it just kind of makes it so that we have a good plan in place to support those students, support what their needs may be, as well as protecting from the contagion that is always the concern when that sorts of things happen. So those are the policy changes. Any questions that any of you have had after looking at any of those policies?
These contain some teacher responsibility.
Yes, yeah. Staff and teachers, administration, how we report it, to whom we report it.
That was all included in that suicide prevention.
Right, and now that's in the procedure. The procedure went from a single page in the policy to 6 pages of procedure, so it's fairly detailed.
And so if that's adopted, then do you have specific training times with them to go over all the policy changes?
We would present it to administrators at the beginning of the school year, review the policy changes, and there's been some consideration. There's some inexact language about the requirement that school districts provide suicide prevention training. And, you know, we've kind of done that on our own to a degree. So, you know, there's consideration of bringing in someone who could kind of reinforce that, as well as making sure that they're aware of the practices expected of all staff members. Okay. And then finally, there's a memorandum in there regarding the Healthy Mind Partnership. We were invited by Matt McCarter from the State Department to make application. It's kind of a grant, but not really a grant. There are no resources coming to the school district. It was an application process, and if we were accepted, then they provide technical assistance to create a partnership in the district. And we applied for 2 different schools, New Horizons Center and Irving Middle School. Irving was chosen. So now we've been working with a consultant who helps us to develop a process where a private provider in the community would come into the school and provide counseling services within the school. They manage all the details of permission. They manage all the details of payment. They can use Medicaid payments. There's the Yes Youth Empowerment Services that the state has expanded recently. So they would, work with families to make sure that there was payment for those services within the school. So it'd be no cost to the school at all. We simply are providing a location in the school for them to provide those services within the school building. And then we provide them with access to our Wi-Fi so that they can connect with their facility. The Irving staff who is working on this interviewed several different private providers, ultimately chose Health West because their process of supporting counselors was a little different than typical. It was, it was not based upon the number of clients that you see and that kind of I don't know what you'd call that process, a per piece process for lack of a better word, but it just was a salary to the counselor that would come into the school. So it's a little better process so that, it encourages their participation in that those counseling services provided at the school.
So is it kind of mental health counseling?
It's mental health counseling, exactly. Yep. And then the school will be the one that refers kids through their processes of identifying kids who may need more than what the counselor can provide at the school. He can't provide ongoing long-term counseling services, so his is more of an emergency intervention, and then they can refer kids if they need long-term services.
Do they only offer one per district?
Well, yes, but once we get this in place, my vision is, and that I'm going to pass on to whomever, hopefully, is that it would be easily replicatable in other schools because there's no resources, that are coming to us other than this technical assistance, and once we've got the system in place, it will be easy to replicate that in other schools as well. Any questions, anything else? I certainly appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Next up is Mr. Orr. Instructional technology update and alternate route to graduation requests.
And both items are fairly routine this evening. You have the instructional technology newsletter as a part of your addendum, I believe, this evening, and that's pretty self-explanatory.
It was, yeah, in the regular agenda.
Oh, it's in the regular agenda tonight. Okay, got it. All right. And then the only other thing I would mention on this topic is several months ago I mentioned to you that we're looking at the state's new computer science standards. And we had reached out to the State Department of Education to see about them providing some technical assistance to us. And after rescheduling several times, we do have a meeting planned this Friday with Rick Kennedy from the State Department, who will be coming over and meeting with a subcommittee of our Instructional Technology Committee this Friday to kind of talk us through those standards and what they might mean with regard to implementation in our district. So in upcoming months, we hope to be able to share with you some plans that we'll put in place for the implementation of those standards. Item F, you have a memo included in your packet detailing an alternate route to graduation request for a student at New Horizon High School. The school administration has signed off and the appropriate paperwork is filed in the curriculum department. So you'll be asked to consider that request a little bit later this evening on your agenda. So unless you have any questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Craney, you're going to be here for a while.
Well, I'll go quickly. They're pretty routine items. First is the Head Start report. The enrollment is still at 183 children, full enrollment. 4 children withdrew this past month, 3 due to lack of transportation and 1 for other reasons. Average daily attendance is 82.38%. Attendance impacted by fewer school days, 2 snow days, and 3 classroom sessions were canceled due to a lack of available teachers or lack of available substitutes due to illness. The reasons for students' absences include 73% of them were sick, 8.8% was due to transportation, and 17.85% for other reasons. They have a volunteer nurse there who is a parent, and she's observed that hand-washing practices in the classroom, there's need for improvement with that, so staff is receiving additional training and program policies are being updated related to hand-washing. The program is also surveying families to see how many had a flu vaccination, if there's a correlation with that. The wait list, 6 4-year-olds and 7 3-year-olds. For the non-federal share match, the year-to-date is $126,568, or 38%. The required match is $335,010. For personnel, the program has filled the health manager position, and Ms. Bray reports that she has started today, so they're celebrating that. That's been a long time coming. 1 teacher assistant position has been filled. They're still needing to hire an additional teacher assistant, a family advocate, retired in February after 20 years. The position is currently posted. Region 10 office is completing the final preparation for awarding the funds requested in the supplemental duration grant application, and the board will be notified as soon as it is official. We were hoping March 1st was that date, and so we're waiting for that. And the request for approval will be made at the March special board meeting for the 5-year continuation grant application. So that's coming up. It's due at the end of the month, so that will be very shortly coming. Okay, next is our Head Start. The Head Start, both of our grants were evaluated by the State Department this month, and the evaluators spent 2 days looking over the program, making sure that everything was in that was required, that they were doing all that they were needing to for the grant, and there were no findings for either grant, which is always good news. They're doing a fundraiser this week at Pizza Pie Cafe, and they're going to donate 25% of their total check when people say that they're with the program, and that does end this Thursday, so tomorrow, or I guess today's Tuesday, a couple days. All of the schools have done a good job enrolling more students, because I've been talking with you about how the change in their enrollment practices and how they're counting attendance this year has changed. And so that has been a struggle, but they are increasing. They've gone from 97 out of 120 students per day in round 10 to 111 out of 120. So we're very near the goal there. In round 12, they're from 97 out of 120. They've increased to 103 out of 120. So they're inching their way up there, and hopefully they'll be able to make those goals. They filled the position at Irving, which has been open since November, and they said they're struggling to fill a position at Lewis and Clark. So they're looking for some.
Is this Head Start or after school?
No,
This is after school. Sorry, did I roll right into that one? Oh, did I say it?
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
You knew what I was talking about. Sorry. I guess it's letter H there. Maybe we should put letter H as being Head Start. Okay. Any questions about the after-school program? All right. Next in the packet is the Idaho Food Bank Backpack Program Report. 794 backpacks were distributed in February. Lewis and Clark didn't distribute any. I noticed that was kind of interesting, but they do have a pantry, and they're able to use that to make sure that those families get what they need there. Okay. Next in the packet is the school immunization report, and you'll note that we're 92.4% of all required immunizations are on file above the state, 86.5%, down a little bit from last year. That has been a hot topic at the legislature, so it was interesting information to see where we were on that. Okay, and the next is the Pocatello Community Charter School Performance Certificate Renewal. Every 5 years, the PCCS charter, their performance certificate is up, and it's now time to evaluate that for renewal. The last time we did this, it was their initial performance certificate because it had changed. The rules had changed for that. So I did have a cover letter in there kind of overviewing what the criteria was and some areas there that they are still continuing to work on. All in all, we have them. You hear them every year. We present an annual report, and we use the performance framework to make sure that we keep a pulse on where they are, so that when it comes 5 years into it, we're not, we don't want a surprise to be there. And every year they've been, in good standing or in honor with the number of points they receive and the academic, the operational, and the financial components of that performance framework. This one we were able to have some new data. So when you saw this, we had growth data, which we hadn't had before, and we're all kind of grappling with that. And so their area of math performance and math growth, when we visit with them, that's an area that they're going to be working on, and I did detail out some of the things that they have planned, and they're well aware that it is an area for needed growth, but they do have some things in the works there. They're also working on those policies, developing policies. They're using, I think, ours as models. They belong to the ISBA now, so they have those model policies. So they're working to get those in place, and they'll continue to communicate with me on their progress towards that, as also their progress towards finding a new authorizer. I continue to ask them that.
Are they still doing much to that?
I think that they're hoping that ISU comes on board and comes around with that, and there have been some changes there, but it doesn't seem to have inched very quickly. Mm-hmm.
And I have to ask about the Head Start program, because I know in the past, that's one area that, as a district, we've been dinged with.
Excuse me,
I said Head Start.
Geez, we're all on Head Start.
About their special ed.
Their special ed program, Mr. Miner, we've gone out, they have made some changes in there, and they are in compliance there, and they have made some changes to really, I think, with staffing to meet the needs of their special ed students. So we feel confident. Mr. Miner's been out there with me, and then we've been talking with Mrs. Kinghorn went with me this time to look at their title program to make sure, because now that they are their own LEA, those funds go directly there. So transportation, that is always something that they're not, they have no plans to provide that. Okay. All right, and then last in there is the calendar with just a minor change. We needed to change, when the calendar was adopted, the kindergarten was an alternate day kindergarten schedule, and now with doing the half day, morning and afternoon every day, we needed to change the start of school. So we have the 26th as being kindergarten orientation, and then the kindergarten students will start the day after that. And that's just a minor change in that calendar. Okay. Thank you.
You're here.
I'm here. And I'm ready.
So mine are really routine for the most part. So the first one is out-of-state overnight travel requests, and you're asked to approve those requests under action items. The first is a choir tour that John Grayson puts together, and really it's misleading to say John Grayson puts it together. He expects his students to put it together. They identify the different places where they're going to perform along the way. They figure out where they're going to stay. He really does require that of his choir, and it's really impressive when that agenda comes through. And then Pam Fleischman up at Highland High School is taking youth government students to Boise. So that's the other request. And those ratios are correct. And you'll be asked to approve that under action items. And the next one are camp requests. And they're pretty routine camps. You'll notice that Highland High School's cheer coach, she's always way ahead of the game. So that was 2020. She's got that thing covered, so those are the camp requests.
You know what I wish though, Jan, is I can't always remember the names of the coaches that they would put, it's easier to it versus.
Oh, little girls' camp, yeah.
Yeah, little girls' camp doesn't tell me
Okay.
a whole lot. I mean, I just wish they'd
Specify. I'll let them know that.
Okay.
All righty. And you'll be asked to approve those also under action items. The next item is an early graduation request, and I was reading through the early grad request and noticed a mistake. One of those students is Highland High School and one is Pocatello High School. Again, the future thinking is incredible. The one student said they're going to CSI to get an associate's degree in vet tech, and then they're going to follow it up with an associate's degree in business so that they can come back here and open their own vet tech or own clinic for pet care. So I thought that was kind of, that future thinking is definitely there. And those also will approve under action items. The last item is policy 8506, student use of electronic communication devices. And this grew out of a conversation I had with a parent who was really upset because her child's cell phone had been confiscated, and she admitted, yes, her child was using it inappropriately, and there needed to be a consequence, but she was worried about her child getting home, that she didn't have a cell phone in case something happened on the way home. And so I met with the administrators to talk about, how do we let parents know that their cell phone's been confiscated. And almost down to the line, every administrator said, when we take a phone, which is always in the office, we tell the child, do you need to call home to let them know you don't have your cell phone? And so we actually put that in the policy that we'll tell the child they need to call home to let the parent know that they don't have their cell phone. So that was how we opted to take care of that issue.
So the responsibility goes to the child.
It does go to the child, and we're talking the secondary setting, and the administrator said, they collect a lot of cell phones in a day, and they're busy, and they don't have time to make sure that they've called the parents. So that's what we've opted to do.
I heard it's better on weekends.
Yeah. So you'll be asked to hear the policy on first reading under action items. What's nice is it is procedure. It's already procedure that's in place. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bart, your turn in the box.
Thank you, Chairman Mattson, members of the board, and Superintendent Howell. I am very happy to start off the report on a very positive note with the Idaho General Fund Revenue Report. It even makes Mrs. Craner smile. We have been through the past 6 months under our projected revenue estimate at the state level, and for the month of February, it came in at a whopping $54 million plus, which is almost double what they had budgeted there. So that's, maybe a good note that we can look forward to in the next 4 months remaining that they had before they finish the fiscal year. Overall, that puts the state about $74 million still below projections on their revenues, or about 3.3% under for where they want to be. So we will continue to watch that very closely. The next item, item B, is our free and reduced lunch percentages, and as you can see, that percent continues to drop. We are at 45.09%. we're almost breaking under the 45% mark, and I don't know that we've ever been there as long as I can remember. So we will look at that, make sure that we have families and students to the greatest extent that we can applying for those programs and being able to participate in that lunch program there.
Mr. Reed, can you tell us how that affects us if we go below a certain point?
Yes, I can. In some respects, the free and reduced percent is used for a variety of various state and federal programs. And just as an example, for Title I, if we fall under a certain percent of free and reduced, then we could possibly lose out on that state funding. That may impact 2 or 3 of our schools possibly here in the coming year. There are other factors that impacts as well, such as our maintenance match at the state level, and I mean that is one common denominator that they use quite frequently in looking at funding for federal and state grants. So we're probably not alone in that across the state or maybe even across the nation, but it is going to impact us somewhat. Another example is our E-rate funding. We were receiving a 30%, where we were receiving a 70% match, or a 70% match on our funds for E-rate, and we were contributing 30% for this year that we're in right now. Or is it next year? Next year. Next year. For next year that we'll be in, it will go to 60-40. So that will impact us as well, and that's primarily based upon free and reduced percentages. Yeah.
I mean, it's good news for people, but it has impact.
Yes, it is. The next item, item C in the agenda, is the notice of sale for surplus property, which was the former Bonneville Elementary School. As you know, we advertised for that twice. We actually left that open for an extended period of time for 2 months. I think it was 60 days approximately. And when we opened bids a few weeks ago, we received no bids for the sale of that property. So there's no action required of the board in regard to having to approve or disapprove anything, just since there were no bids. I did want to remind the board in regard to potentially next steps, if you would, if the board would care to go there. Idaho Code 33601, part of this says, during the sealed bid or public auction process, no real property of the school district can be sold for less than the appraised value. If, however, no satisfactory bid is made and received, which is the case, the board may proceed under its own discretion to sell or convey the property for the highest price the market will bear. That is the exact wording in that Idaho code. So included under item C in your packet is a letter that you've received, and I think that you are all very much aware that there is a group in this community that is very interested in that facility, and you have that letter before you to review. So that's kind of where we are, and if the board decided to move forward in a different direction in regard to this property, that would be something that you would need to give the administration direction to, and we'd need to proceed as you would direct us. So.
Do you want the direction tonight? You guys wanna,
Well,
you wanna
I
discuss
definitely
this?
think at this point it's something we need to consider and look at, you know, their lettering and everything else.
I think, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Howell, I think that there is some discussion that may be had by the administration in regard to this facility as well. It still is of value to the district, obviously. Even though we aren't occupying it, we do occupy a portion of it, and we do use it for storage. So, you know, Mr. Chairman, it may be more appropriate for us to visit about that in a work session or another meeting to discuss maybe some of the pros and cons and where we may be with that. What are some of the options? Yes.
Next month.
Mm-hmm.
Next month work session. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we had talked about earlier, Mr. Reed and I,
Okay.
if that was your pleasure tonight.
Yeah,
I
that'd be good.
think that's probably
okay.
good.
Okay, very good. The next item is, if I can get the pages not to stick here, item D is just by way of information to you. This bid is already out there. It's been advertised, but this is a floor plan, if you will, a parking lot layout of our existing parking lot plus the additional property that we purchased a number of years ago out to the west of us here. What I just wanted to mention in this layout is we really had 2 or 3 goals. One was to improve the overall safety of our parking lot area, not only for employee or patron parking, but also for our bus traffic. We have 85 buses that come in and out of this lot several times a day. Secondly, it was to increase the number of parking spaces that we have for our buses, and the third would be to increase the number of parking spaces that we have for employees or patrons. And so in this, I just want to indicate to you that presently we have about 83 bus parking spots. This new design would add 90 bus parking locations or spots, but they would not be vertical as our buses park like this. They would be on a slant, which is a much safer way to be able to park and much easier for our employees to park their buses. Plus, it helps directionalize the flow of the buses coming in and out of the lot. And then we would have approximately about 100 new employee or patron parking spots that we could have. Hopefully, we should be able to have all of our transportation and food service employees park in this back section here with this redesign, and then reserve all of the parking from here forward for patron or some employee parking from our staff here as well. We really run into some issues many times when we have meetings where there is just not a single parking spot left, and so this will help tremendously. So this is just information to share with you in regard to the overall design. We will bring this information back to you when we receive the bids and we're able to make a recommendation on.
Would you make that fence out there?
You know, initially,
For the public, for the employees?
thank you for bringing that up. You know, initially we were thinking about moving that fence, but with this design, and you can see how it kind of scoots back closer to the building here and kind of comes off of that gate and then kind of swings back to the right or to the north here before it goes out. As we looked at that design, there would be really no benefit to moving that fence. In fact, it probably would be a disadvantage for us to move it. However, one of the things that we talked about was opening this gate, which presently isn't open, so that if you do park back here and you have to come to the front of the education center, they don't have to walk all the way around in order to do that. So we'll probably open up some gates, but leave the fence where it is. It seems that it'll make it a little bit more secure with what we're trying to accomplish. All right. Next item, item E, is our Public School Foundation program, and this is the recommendation that has come out through JFAC to our state legislature. I'm not going to go over this in real great detail at this point in time, but maybe just highlight a couple of things. The first item is that overall, the total revenues are up 5.8%, which is good news. I think we've talked about that previously. In this recommendation that has gone from JFAC and gone through the state legislature, nearly $50 million has been put into the salary schedule for the career ladder. This will be the 5th year of the career ladder, so that is outstanding news there. There is just short of $15 million of new funding for the discretionary, or what we call the operational funds of the district. What that means to our district is an additional $550,000 roughly based upon our student enrollment. So that will be very helpful. The governor was able to push through an additional, it actually doubled his literacy program, an additional $13.1 million. So we should see more dollars coming in for those programs within our district, basically double the amount that we've had in the current year's budget. And then for classified and administrative staff, $7.3 million statewide in that salary schedule, which equates to about a 3% new monies for salaries in that category there. And then maybe just lastly, a new line item, which is a little over $7 million for master educator premiums, which will be something new that we'll have to administer in our district based upon that program there. So that is the funding formula, or the funding that we can look at for this upcoming year, which is good news for public education. On a related note, you know that there has been a lot of discussion in relation to the new funding formula. And try as we may, that, I mean, they've run that up the flagpole and down the flagpole on a hour-by-hour basis. And honestly, to the extent where we can't even really talk to you about where that funding formula may be. We can tell you a couple of things in regard to, they have looked at the wealth factor, remember that wealth weight, if you would, which we as a Pocatello Chubbuck School District felt very good about, but that has gone back and forth about throwing it out or changing it or doing something different that we don't know even where that is at this point in time. There has been discussion about not fully funding the various weights, say for special education, remember, and I don't remember the exact percentages, but it may have started at say 2% and then gone to 4% and 6% and then ultimately at 10%. You know, there's been talk about only doing that for the 1 year and letting the state legislature determine what they would do in future years. So in reality, we are just watching this day by day and seeing where this is going to land. There is very strong possibility that they may delay the funding formula and not make any decision during the state legislative session. Or maybe they will. So we do not really know where this will end up. And I don't know, Dr. Howell, if there's anything more you want to add to that, but
Sure. Yeah, I was going to talk about it a little bit in my report tonight
Okay.
under that legislative, but this is a perfect time as well. 3 different bills have come forward in as many days, and so the House presented one on Monday, and it was not successful. In fact, by a vote of 8-7 in the House Ed Committee, with knowing that that there would be a Senate bill presented today. And so that Senate bill, I do not know that it moved forward because in anticipation of a revised Senate bill coming forward tomorrow. And so the revision, from what we've heard from Superintendent Ibarra's office, is that this Senate revision will take into consideration some of those elements of the House bill that was defeated yesterday. And so, as Mr. Reed prefaced his comments, it really is an hour-by-hour, day-by-day kind of an event. And I think even Karen Echeverria and Quinn's capital notes mentioned yesterday that there was a change even as she was preparing her statement of for the week in her capital notes edition. And so we'll just continue to keep an eye on it. I think across the state there is great hesitation, at least in the superintendent's ranks, from a meeting that I attended yesterday, as to whether or not this should move forward. Because even for our district, that pendulum has swung from one side to the other, and there is anywhere from a 25 to 30% difference, it seems like, with every model that is presented.
Yeah. A lot of contention over there about this thing.
Yes,
Just
very much so. And there are many who have worked on the committee for 3.5 years, and so they feel it's time to make a move, and then there are others who think maybe we should just wait it out. Of those who would like to move forward, they are of the idea or notion that maybe in the next year they can work out the finer details, but that just could lead to more trouble. I don't know. So we will wait and see. I think at this point we would like them to maybe be hold, and that is ISBA's direction at this point, unless something comes forward that addresses all of the concerns that the stakeholders such as ISBA, IASA, and IEA have presented. Yeah.
Well, and you know, when we went to ISBA and Day on the Hill, Ms. Echeverria said she was certain it was going to go through this year.
Yeah.
You know, she said she was certain, and then And then I would read some of her posts lately, and they go to a meeting and they think they have everything resolved, and they get out of the meeting and everything's changed and different, you know, and
Yeah.
so it's obviously become a real hot thing. I feel badly because I think those people who've been on that committee for 3.5 years have really tried to do their due diligence and look at all aspects of it, and then when you break up the pie, everybody wants more, or they're affected because of this, and a lot of the wealthy schools don't want to give up any of their wealth, you know, and a lot of different things, or if they don't have a lot of special ed, so it just seems to be a hot topic, and it changes every day, so.
Right, and there are some that, again, would say we would like to have this all wrapped up before the end of the legislative session, but I don't know if that's a possibility, if they'll stick around, or how it will go.
And at the rate they're going, I don't know that you'd want them to come to some kind of conclusion.
Well, I liked their original idea, is go with what they had and then work out through the first year the problems that they might see come up in that, but it's become such a hot thing, who knows?
You know, I hope that they don't lose sight of the fundamental reason for why this funding formula was suggested to be changed, and that is to create greater equity and parity between districts in regard to funding, whether they're large or small districts. And
I think that's what they're doing. They're starting to lose why they did this in the first place.
could be, you know, I think it brings a whole new meaning to March Madness, which is the basketball season, but we could probably say something about that in regard to this funding formula. So, all right, well, moving on. The next item is item F, which is our policy and guidelines for federal and state grants. You'll remember a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, this came to the board as a policy adoption. This is kind of a lengthy document of very wordy procedures and guidelines and policies in regard to all of the requirements that either the federal government or state government wants us to be compliant with grants. And most of this new language that has either been added or maybe tweaked just a little bit there is to come in greater conformity to things that they will be looking at. As they come and audit us, they will say, do you do this, do you do that? And so we would, unless you'd like to have specific discussion on any of the changes in there, we would just ask that the board would adopt this as part of our policy on first reading. We do have a federal audit with the food service program this month, and so we were hopeful that we could get these changes in here, have it become policy, and then when they come in the audit that we can indicate to them that even though we may have been doing these things, it's now included in this policy and guidelines document here. Questions? All right. Lastly, I'll just try to go quickly through the various bids that we have. First one is our school bus bid. You can see that we had two vendors, Rush Truck Center and also Western Mountain Bus Sales. And we are recommending that, and you can see that they were very competitive bids for these particular buses, but we are recommending that Rush Truck Center be awarded the amount of $358,240 for the 5 new 78-passenger buses, and that Western Bus Sales be awarded $100,489 for the 154-passenger bus, and this is under our proposed budget. Next one is for carpet and cove base in our various schools. We had two vendors that bid on the projects in Carpet Plus. Color Tile is the one who came in as the low bidder here. Again, we have worked with both of these companies. Both of them are very quality vendors. Again, very, very close bids in relation to almost less than $1,000 between the two of them there. But we are requesting that the board award that bid to Carpet Plus Color Tile for $88,501.83. Next one is for HVAC in our various district buildings. We had 3 vendors who submitted proposals for these projects, and you can see that it was split between Lewis Mechanical, or Lewis Corporation and Mechanical Solutions. And so for projects 1, 2, and 5, we would ask that the board award that to Lewis Corp in the amount of $312,810, and then to Mechanical Solutions for projects 3 and 4 for a total of $233,607. And again, just barely under our budget by a little less than $60,000 overall. Next one is VCT tile in our different schools, and Carpets Plus again was low bidder on this project at $96,621.29. The next one is for network firewall for our technology department and for our district. You can see that we received 2 bids from Tech Hut and Orion Integrated Group, and the low bid was $45,300. The next bid on that was $192,000 plus.
What's the difference?
I anticipated that you would ask that question.
They just didn't want it.
Well, in talking with Mr. Berkman, who's over the technology department, he indicated to me that with some of these network firewalls, they have different levels. So they'll maybe have a minimal level, and so you'll have like a level 1, level 2, level 3. And he said that for this second vendor here, they, on their minimum level, they didn't quite meet the requirement, and their next level up was substantially higher. And so they just didn't have any mid-level steps for that. But they feel very comfortable with Tech Hut. We've done a lot of business with them over the years, and they've been a very reliable and very dependable dealer. So the motion is to award that for $45,300 to Tech Hut. The next one is network switches and accessories, and we only received 1 vendor there from Tech Hut for the amount of $527,700. And this is E-rate eligible type product that we can go out, and so we hope to anticipate or save $263,843 roughly off of this bid from E-rate funding. So the net amount would be the amount that's shown there in your information. I just want to mention briefly in closing that next month we will have asphalt, entry doors, our custodian and instructional supply bids, track and lighting, ceiling tile, the Pocatello High School front entry, and administrative renovation. All those bids will be coming forth in the month of April for your approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Carl Smart, it's time.
Okay. 3 short items from me tonight. Of course, we always talk about IC and Infinite Campus and those sort of things tonight. Just let you know that Infinite Campus, they're in the middle of creating schedules for next year. And so the rollover was, as far as we can tell, we're very successful. And so they're now creating next year's schedules based upon, or they will be, based upon what the kids requested during their online course requests. So they're in the middle of doing that. We found out as we submitted our IC report for this month that we are going to have to do some adjustments in next year's schedule, just for reporting our credit recovery classes. And so we'll meet with our registrars a week after spring break, just so we can kind of work through that. But that leads me into, IC upload, actually, that we did this last couple weeks. I pressed the submit button tonight because we were error-free, so we're good for the month of March. And that's pretty good when you have over 1.5 million records that we submit to them this month. So we're good to go. So we got the okay signed back from the state, and so I think we're in pretty good shape. I think the next submission is in May. Excuse me. In your packet is student enrollment information. I'm not going to review it in great detail with you, but just know that we're in the ballpark where we were a month ago, and still over what we were a year ago. So that's the good news. Just a little bit of additional information. We did our student enrollment projections this last week, and we anticipate being up about another 80 kids next year if everything holds true. So based upon what our directors rolled over and what these projections looked like, they were very close. So that's the good news. So anyway, we will see when we get to next year, but right now that's where we're anticipating being, and we will budget on those additional 80 students for when we create our budget this next couple of months. Item C in my section, because we're a week early in our meeting tonight, we were not able to get a dashboard ready for you. However, Shauna came in today and was able to tell me that number that we are always interested in our medical experience came in at about 71% for the month of February.
So for the year, what does that mean?
She didn't tell me for the year.
Close. It's gonna be close.
But it's going to be, it's going to be under 90% so far.
Yeah.
And Mr. Matson, as you know, we are in the middle of reviewing options for our medical plan. We met last week, we met yesterday, and we are going to get some additional information from Lockton that might help us finalize our decision over the next couple of weeks. And so, so anyway, I think we're looking pretty good on our medical renewal, better than I thought we were going to be when we were starting the year. So that's the good news. But we will have the February and probably the March updates for you when we meet in April.
Okay.
And we'll see where we are at in that time. So that concludes my report tonight, unless you have other questions or comments for me.
No. Human Resources, Sue Pettit.
We are bringing policy 7308. We brought this to you last month for a first reading, and then we went back and did some changes on it with some suggestions from our input from members of the PEA and other staff members. And some of them we left as is, and some of it we did change. So let me go a little bit into what we changed and what we didn't change. One of the requests was that we designate Pocatello Education Association is to certify, and we left that as local education association specifically because the PEA may not always be the local education association that represents 50% plus one. And so rather than coming and changing it every single time, we expect it to be PEA for the foreseeable future, but it may not always be. So we just left it as local education association. We did take out the part that they not need to be a formal organization with ties to any state or national entity, and may be entirely comprised of a local group of professionals. We take all that out. One of the requests was that down at the neutral party selection, that be a selection between that the PEA and, or the local education association and the district come up with that neutral party list. Seemed kind of like a moot point, as the rest of that whole section is that the local education association gets to choose off of that list. So to get together and create the list and then have them choose off the list seemed kind of redundant. So we should just leave it as the district comes up with the list, and then the local education association can choose from that list. One of the requests was that the district would pay the monetary cost for that neutral party review, and we wrote that in there, and that all materials would not be copied and returned to their provider upon conclusion of that review. And that was a perfectly reasonable request.
Say that again.
That all materials that are sent for that neutral party review would be returned to the people who provided it. There would be no copies made.
So just to the district?
So, well, we provide a list of the professional employees, and the local education association provides documentation of who they represent. No copies will be made of that. So our list would be returned to us, and their documentation would be returned to them.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't
There's no reason.
we don't need a copy of theirs, and they don't need a copy of ours. So, and the neutral party doesn't need to make a copy of any of it. So there shouldn't be any copies made, and it should be returned to the rightful provider. So. The other request was that in the last section, that the membership, so it says association will have the privilege to use district email to communicate with its membership. In the negotiated agreement itself, it says bargaining unit, and that needed to be changed to their entire bargaining unit. They don't, not just to their membership, but anybody they could represent. So that's the suggestions we have to change. And then ask that you would hear it on second reading tonight.
Okay. I have a few problems with when I read the original one from last month and when I read this one. And I just didn't see a whole lot of compromise here, and I didn't see a whole lot of change. And I guess I'm a little concerned because we've been working well. We worked really well with them last year, and it's been going fine. And I just think maybe we're jumping the gun a little with this specific of a policy. And I'm a little concerned here about this. I'll just, and I'll wait to hear whatever else.
Any specific parts of it that you're concerned with?
Well, I think that it can be problematic just leaving it local and not putting people in it. And I think that gives a sense of teachers feeling somewhat unappreciated and some doubt there among teachers about what really could happen. And it's just so vague, that I'm a little concerned about that. So I think that's somewhat problematic. I don't think the neutral party list is necessarily fair that the district come up with the list. I think the list should be generated between the PEA and the district, and that you both have people on there, and you could each pick maybe one person from your own choices, and then have one neutral person. I mean, I think that there's some things that could be changed there. So I just don't know that I'm real satisfied with it the way it is.
Right, and like I said, this is for reading. We can come back again next month with it again. So it's
and I just don't want to create any waves where we don't have to create waves. So I'd rather have it done right before we do it.
Most definitely.
And that's just I was absent last month, but as I read the two, I just didn't see. I didn't see a lot of compromise here, I guess, is what I thought.
Okay.
That's just my feeling right now. I'll stop.
Yeah, no, you're fine, Mrs. Craney. If I may, Mrs. Bennett. So what we can do is we'll go back and take your suggestions, your thoughts, visit about them a little bit more, and then you would not take action tonight. We can bring it back for a third reading with some potential changes. If I may, the first paragraph, when we talk about the local education association, I know you've expressed your concern. This was developed off of a template from, School Boards Association. And so, and the majority of it, well, not even, I don't know, probably 80% of it, I would say, or more. And so, what that allows for, by saying local education association, is the flexibility to, and I think Mrs. Pettit addressed it earlier, so it doesn't, and I see your concern.
Yeah, most definitely.
Saying there about flexibility and
right.
And yeah, I guess, I don't know if PEA is talking tonight or not.
I don't know if they filled out a.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so Mrs.
And
McGrory
so I would
will
kind of like
probably
to get.
address that.
Most definitely.
You bet.
Get views too, so we can make an informed decision.
I think it's a great idea.
Table it or whatever.
Okay.
I just want to echo the neutral party thing, because it's a neutral party, so it should be 100% neutral no matter who comes up with the list. And so if PEA and the district get together and create the list, it's still a list of neutral party people, and whoever picks it is whoever picks it. So it's a neutral party. So
I don't want to endanger fixing something that I don't think is real broken.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I realize our purpose in doing this was to follow the new law, but I just don't know if we need to be so specific.
Sure.
That's,
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
Okay.
Less is more, sort of a thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Just ask for forgiveness. We did it wrong.
I'm up.
Oh, you're up, okay, all right,
So-
go for it.
All right, so, Mr. Chair, I'll just jump in with the calendar. You can see that, boy, we've got a week of spring break coming up, highly anticipated, well-deserved, ready to have a little bit of time away. But before that, you can see tonight, regular board meeting, and then again, that, the big break there. We'll come back March, that last week of March, really, and then we have a special meeting to approve Head Start grant on March 27th, potentially some student discipline hearings, so we tried to match those up for you to be in just once that week. April, pardon me? So far, we already have one student hearing scheduled. So April 2nd, board school visit. You can see there that Mrs. Craner and Mr. Gertz would go to Irving for their visit. Lewis and Clark would be Mr. Manson, and then Mr. Vitale and Mrs. Gephardt would accompany Mr. Miner up to the Voice and Link program at ISU. That's always a fun visit. And then we would have a work session. We're back on in April. We've had a little bit of a hiatus with February and March being ISBA, and then spring break. Those weeks kind of brought about a break from our work sessions. And then student discipline hearings about every couple weeks, so April 10th would bring those back around. Local issues on April 12th, tax day, April 15th, and then Judge Murray's meeting on the 16th, and regular board meeting that night. So that takes us about a month out on the calendar. I'll just continue with the legislative update. As I mentioned earlier in the capital notes, Mrs. Echeverria provides a very nice summary of all the bills that we're tracking, and so I'll let you take a look at that at your leisure. Just a couple that I wanted to highlight and follow up with where Mrs. Fisher was talking about the firearms in schools and the immunization exemption disclosures. Both of those House bills have been held in the committee by the committee chairman, and so they're not anticipated to come forward. In fact, Mrs. Echeverria says they're dead. So we'll hope that those stay in the drawer.
I think that from what I understood, well, I don't want to say police, but you know, they had a lot to do with about the firearms, one not feeling comfortable with that
Yes.
particular
In fact,
bill.
Chief Marchand,
Yeah,
he
didn't
and I
want any.
exchanged a few text messages about that, and he said, we're moving forward, and I said, I want you to know, we've already contacted our legislative delegation and spoke in opposition to that. And that should be local
But
control.
that sounded dead, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does, Sex education opt-in bill is still alive. It passed the House and is awaiting a hearing in the Senate. And this is one that we're also watching very closely. ISBA opposes it. We're, as a district, I don't think we're in favor of it. It allows for some additional parental rights, so to speak, but in terms of curriculum, we might have to adjust our curriculum in order to accommodate any requests outside of what we already provide.
You could end up with nobody in class. I mean, if, you know.
Right.
you could- I mean, I don't know how we'd plan for curriculum, or how we'd plan for.
Exactly.
And how you train teachers to do
Yeah.
one thing or another, or this or that, or what's too much for somebody and not enough.
Exactly, yeah. And then the other one on election consolidation, it doesn't appear that that's going anywhere this year. So
Oh.
we're grateful for that.
That's not going to?
Not going, yeah.
Of the election,
Election consolidation, yeah, there's some talk, but, and so the rest, I think I'll just let you take a look at those, like I said, as you would like, and if you have questions, feel free to call, and I'll do the best to field the answer based upon, again, the time perhaps of the day or the week. Yeah.
And I do appreciate your texting and your involvement in letting them know the positions that we feel on this. I know you send them texts and emails. So.
Yeah, and phone calls, leave a voicemail,
Yeah,
please
it's
check
good.
your email, so, yeah.
Because sometimes they say they don't hear from us or know we're standing, so I know that's.
So now I'm leaving the phone message as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's it for
That's
me,
it?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next on the agenda, it's time for public comment pertinent to items on the agenda. And Mary Ann McGrory has filled out. Come on up.
Uh-oh.
Sitting
no.
too long.
Too long.
Too long.
Don't time her.
Do I have 5 minutes or 3? 5, okay. Okay. So, board members, I stand before you with my I voted sticker on to express my disappointment with this recommended policy. I have prepared remarks, but I'm going to deviate a little bit since I understand you've postponed action on it. I would like to go through some of our concerns with each of the sections of the policy. Number one, this proposed policy is being touted as a means to reconcile the policy with the updated Idaho Code. The only change in the Idaho Code that deals with negotiation is that the negotiation authorization cards, which we have all members of the bargaining unit sign, or we present to all members of the bargaining unit to sign, which gives the local association the authority to negotiate on their behalf. That law was changed that those cards must be updated every 2 years. That's the only law. That's the only thing that has changed. As to the naming of the PEA in the policy, the PEA and the district has had a collaborative relationship for over 30 years, and that's as I have contracts that go back more than 30 years. And removing the PEA as the named association was viewed as a slap in our face by many of our members and a denigration of that relationship. And I also agree with Mrs. Craner that I believe that in the past years, our relationship between the association and the district and the Board of Trustees has only grown richer and more cooperative and collaborative. And I believe last year's negotiation was an example of that, when we negotiated in 4 sessions, and we ratified and we signed contracts before end of school, which was not the norm in the past several years. As to the review of the authorization cards, it is both the PEA and the IEA's contention that the Idaho Code does not give the district unilateral decision-making authority in regards to negotiations. The law states that upon request by the district, the association will provide written evidence that it represents 50% plus 1 of the bargaining unit. This law limits the district to a non-actionable party requesting information and designates the education organization as the sole party to provide for the determination and written evidence of 50% plus 1. I'm not going to read you the law because I'm running out of time. But nowhere in the statute is the school board or administration authorized to stipulate or regulate the process for determining 50% plus 1. Again, we did ask that a list of neutral parties be made in a collaborative and cooperative way, and we asked that no partisan offices or candidates would be chosen. We did ask that the association be able to have a representative in the room with the neutral party in case of questions regarding the authorization cards. We have an issue where on the list from the district, I might get someone's last name and then just a first initial. And so when I have them sign the cards, they're signing their name they go by. And our concern is that if this policy is passed, then, and we're not in there to explain this is the same person, this is his full name, this is his school name, that's going to not be counted in that percentage-wise. Finally, we did ask that the language in the final section on page 4 that allows the PEA the privilege of transacting association to be reverted to the language of that we have the right to transact business, association business. That wording was in the negotiated agreement for more than 29 years, and it only ended with the Luna laws And when those Luna laws were defeated, that language was put back into the negotiated agreement with the word privilege instead of right. So these are our concerns. I think we've shown that we as a entity and as a leadership group, we always are looking for a time that we can work cooperatively and collaboratively with you, and we are always at anytime anyone calls. I myself or one of my executive board members would be happy to meet on any discussion on any topic. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mary Ann? We'll now move into the action items. The first item for business is to hear on first reading of the following policies. Policy 3306, school visitors and sex offenders limitations. Policy 8313, student sex offenders. Policy 7402/8302, suicide prevention. And policy 8506, student use of electronic communication devices. Is there a motion?
I move that we hear on first reading policy 3306, policy 8313, policy 7402/8302, and policy 8506.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Maybe, hold on just a minute.
I can't.
Renee will get it right in the minutes.
Okay, all right.
As far as a first motion and second.
It went to me and then there was nothing.
We need this technology.
Actually, it's easy, it comes right up.
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. Vitality.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, the motion is passed. Next item of business is to hear on second reading adoption 73. I think we're going to move on. If the board is not totally ready to adopt this, and I don't think we are.
No.
Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion to hear. I would entertain a motion to hear this policy on second reading and direct the administration to bring further changes for a third reading at the April board meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would move that we delay any vote on this policy.
Isn't that what I just said?
So you can hear it on second, but
hear it on second.
delay
it to
a third reading for adoption.
Okay, I'm so moved.
Nope. Just the procedure.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? I think we had it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is passed. The next item of business is to hear on second reading policy, or reading for deletion, policy 7205, negotiations. Is there a motion?
Well,
Actually, we can't delete one until.
Okay, then we're gonna move on. Same process. Okay. You do all that stuff. Good,
Okay,
good.
do I need to make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so I move that we hear on second reading, but delay any action for further discussion and direct it.
I'll second the motion.
Yep, that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I hear, so that's move on. So the next item of business is to approve the Healthy Minds Partnership.
I move that we approve the Healthy Mind Partnership.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is passed. Next item of business is to approve the alternate route to graduation request.
I move we approve those alternate route to graduation requests.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is passed. The next item of business is to approve the PCCS Performance Certificate. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the PCCS Performance Certificate.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. Let's see, next is to adopt and amend the 2019-2020 K-12 school district calendar.
I move we adopt the amended 2019-20 K-12 school district calendar.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is passed. The next item of business is to approve the out-of-state overnight travel request.
I move that we approve the out-of-state overnight travel requests.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion is passed. The next item is to approve the camp requests.
I move that we approve the camp requests.
I'll second.
And no discussion probably. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed.
Should have stopped it.
Okay, the next item is to approve the early graduation request.
I think we need a correction here, because we have
Because we had
one vote
as
as corrected.
Okay, I move we approve those early graduation requests as
Corrected.
corrected.
I'll
Oh,
second.
yeah, Highland. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. The next item of business to approve the revised policies and guidelines for federal state funds. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the revised policy and guidelines for federal and state funds.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion is passed. The final item of business is to award the following bids: buses, carpet, HVAC, network firewall, network switches, VCT tile. Is there a motion?
I move we award those bids.
I'll second the motion.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. Okay, and that concludes this meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Okay.
Done.
And people still have 40 minutes to go home.
40 minutes. 40 minutes to vote.